Hi there, this is a quick update that I split off from my main video going over George R. R. Martin's most recent blog post, where he was talking about what he's done in the past year and how he's been slowed down by one crisis or another. But he did briefly mention Winds of Winter and Fire and Blood Part 2. To me, even though he said it in a very downer way, it was oddly encouraging because we thought it was worse than this. I understand that I've talked about before that a lot of his close personal friends are of an age that they're dying, like Gardner Dozois, and he said, Howard Waldrop, my oldest friend who I'd known 60 years since high school, he died in January, and that really affected me, going into spring. And then he talks about how I was fighting with the studio over stuff, and I talk about that in the other video, the speculation of what exactly is it, specific story points, but for here, he's talking about how I was really messed up by all this. I was under a ton of stress. He seems in a pretty bad way, and we all feel really sorry for him. Just any other channel leader I've seen reading through this, that I understand it was a very frustrating time. Good news is he said he felt really recharged by his month-long trip to Europe for a couple of things. It was business stuff too, but it was to go to Worldcon, which he's a big part of, to meet agents, also to do a set visit for the new Dunk and Egg TV series, and he said he was very impressed by what he saw there. But, he spells out in this, I realized I was in such a funk I would not have gotten anything done anyway if I stayed home for a month. I needed something to break me out of that. And my hope is this is, set him back on a good course, recharged him and all of that. But it's like a 6-month period, January through June, and then he went on the trip. The thing is, we thought, there's all these things, he's so upset he hasn't gotten a word of writing done. And he mentioned, well, I actually have gotten, he phrases it as a couple of pages. That might be like a full chapter or something, it's just there's quite a lot of pages. So when he says a couple, it's, well, as a small fraction of a really big thing, but that he mentions, I have gotten some writing done on The Winds of Winter, just a few pages. And consider that he said that, and I understand, now going through his work history, he's gotten the most writing done when he wasn't doing 2 jobs, when he was like, all right, Beauty and the Beast is over, I'm just writing this thing full time, or he wasn't, splitting attention. That he got 2/3 of The Winds of Winter, by his own admission, done during the pandemic lockdown. And, he had like a quarter done as spillover from the last book, and he's up to the point where he said last year it's about 2/3 done. He got a lot done. And I think it's easier you go. I think there's about, I've calculated before, there's like 20 chapters left, given the count he did. But then again, he usually saves the most difficult chapter for last. It's not just writing in order, you're revising it constantly and going back to things. I understand that he needs to get it right if this is his magnum opus, and he might not even finish the next one. You want to get this one right. I don't know. But, he also gave another really nice interview while he was at Worldcon to winteriscoming.net that I will link. It's a text-based interview. Well, they recorded it, but they didn't post the recording. They posted a transcript. Long form, very detailed, talking about his career, his science fiction writing career. Not about, he said, I don't want to talk about the TV shows and stuff, and it was mostly about his career through the 70s and 80s and how he went through his science fiction writing career and how this was tied to Worldcon, and he won Hugo's, founded the Hugo's Losers Club. It's just that in the interview there is a point where he leaned in, it notes, he leans into the microphone and says, and I will get the Winds of Winter book done. So that was encouraging. But he loves doing this, and as he said at the people who were there and we had reports, it's not that he doesn't want to keep doing this, it's he loves when he gets to write it. It's a lot of stuff, and we at least feel sorry for him for all this outside stuff going on. And I'm just happy that it didn't come to a grinding halt. It's just, there were external problems, like I've said before, I don't want to meet the person who isn't messed up for 3 or 4 months after a friend of 60 years dies. This guy's a human being, And on top of that, the problems with the studio, which, as far as we can tell, we side with him, though I hope they reconcile. While I am happy, there was some Winds of Winter stuff, it's not like it's just he was distracted, and I hope this recharged him. That isn't the main reason I'm making this. I just wanted to clarify something else he said in this post. that he says, I got a couple of pages done on The Winds of Winter and on Fire and Blood Part 2, which he has said before I'm titling Blood and Fire. So it's the sequel to it. There's two halves, and it is a pretty good breaking point that the Targaryens reign for 300 years, and at roughly the 150-year mark, there's a big stopping point, the dragons die, and then there's the other half. It's when the stories from the Dance of the Dragons era wind down, and then the next generation, the parents of the people who become characters in the Blackfire Rebellion era, it starts taking over, so it leans into that. And I just wanted to deal with some people complaining I saw on social media, oh god, he's taking time from Winds of Winter to write Fire and Blood Part 2. That's the whole reason I made this video, is just for people complaining, oh god, he was working on both. He has explained to us many times before, back 10 years ago when he was working on the World Book, that remember, Fire and Blood started out as sidebars that he commissioned for the World of Ice and Fire book, that he got carried away with, that the one on the Targaryen conquest alone was 10,000 words, and they put that in as a large 10-page sidebar. And then Elio and Linda said, and then we just wake up and get an email with the Princess and the Queen in it, and there's this whole other prequel era that he just banged out. And they said, relative to the vast sweeps of time these essays were covering, he cranked out a lot of different prequel eras we didn't even know about before in a short amount of time. And the key point here of the whole video is Martin has said, writing these prequel in-universe history book outlines is easy, and I do it for fun when I'm stuck and not writing The Winds of Winter. That when he was stuck on I can't find progress on The Winds of Winter, within a year he basically banged out pretty much all of Fire and Blood. The Jaehaerys stuff he wrote later, he had like 2/3 of it, it was just there, sitting on a shelf. So I don't have a problem with that at all. It's like, it's either this or him talking about, oh, I saw a good football game, which he blogs about a lot. That Blood and Fire, Fire and Blood Part 2, is writing for pleasure to him. It's just something he bangs out, because brainstorming an outline is easy. So it's just something he knocks off really quickly when he's stuck on something in the Winds of Winter, and I'm fine with that. As for how much of it is done, well, Fire and Blood Part 2 would cover everything from the reign of Aegon III, because the last book ends very abruptly with, and this is how his regency ended. There's another 20 years of his reign we know very little about, and then it's sort of the through line of Viserys II and his son Aegon IV being hands of the king for their cousins, and Aegon IV becomes a corrupt king. Then Aegon IV's bastard children fight with his other children in the Blackfire Rebellion. That's all kind of the first half chronologically, and the second half would be all the Dunk and Egg stuff, which is really important, because he might never finish the planned, he's got 3 done out of a planned 12. So Fire and Blood Part 2 will be the outline for later Dunk and Egg seasons. We need that. Granted, Elio and Linda have said he has outlined already a surprisingly large amount of Dunk and Egg, to the point we told him to leave things out of World of Ice and Fire because they were spoilers. So, and I've made another video looking over this, out of these 12 stories, I think this would actually be 2 TV shows, because the first 7 stories, like story 7 is the 3rd Blackfire Rebellion, the first 7 come like in-universe, it's like 1 or 2 year gaps between each story. After story 7, there's a 10-year time skip, and story 8 would be when Egg becomes king. So there's a time skip, you'd have to recast the characters, and the format changes because it's Egg dealing with, Egg the King, Aegon V. And on top of that, I said Martin has also remarked on he kind of would like to see the rise of Tywin in the Rain Rebellion show, but a whole other video where I say that overlaps so much with late Dunk and Egg that you can make a 7-season show on the later Dunk and Egg's Tragedy at Summerhall of Season 5, and it transitions into focusing on Tywin, because Tywin goes to court as a squire late in Egg's reign. Like, even if you didn't combine them, Tywin would still be like a character in the 10th or 11th Dunk and Egg novella. So I think it makes more sense to treat that as one story, but that's way in the future. Just focusing on the near future of Dunk and Egg could be like 7 seasons for 7 novellas, of which we only have 3, and he said the 4th and 5th are mostly done. Blood and Fire would give us an outline for how to finish this 7-season Dunk and Egg show. And they said it's mostly outlined in his notes already. Another thing they said from the World Book is even 10 years ago, they said Martin has a lot of notes about the reign of Aegon the Unworthy. Aegon IV, who his children fight the Blackfire Rebellion, but so it ties in with their youth, but a lot of that is done already. The thing I'm really looking forward to him cranking out, apart from details on the Blackfire Rebellion, is, again, Fire and Blood Part 1 ends very abruptly with certain storylines and subplots still in motion. Like Alice Rivers, you get the sense her storyline hasn't even begun. That the last 4 dragons haven't died yet. And just that there's so many wheels in motion when it goes, well, the Regency ended at the same time Winter ended, and it was an abrupt stopping point because it reformed the Small Council. I really hope that Martin has at least, words on paper if he gets struck by a bolt of lightning tomorrow. He has some outlines for this is how the rest of Aegon III's Regency ends, tying up loose ends for characters from the Dance of the Dragons, like Kragan Stark lives to be an old man. I've said before I did the math, he might have lived until the Blackfire Rebellion. He would have been 88, but he definitely lived through the conquest of Dorne. So, other stuff Kragan did, other characters who were alive, like Ben Blackwood, and just what happened to all these characters, or Baela and Rhaena. I mean, he only briefly said what happened to them in the World Book. Well, they went on, married so-and-so, had children, but other things they did during the reign of their brother. So, I'm happy that he's doing that, and just I want to make this video to point out, he just bangs out, brainstorms an outline for these prequel in-universe books. It's very easy, and he does it instead of watching football. He does it when he's not working on the Winds of Winter, just for fun to set his ideas down, versus it is really hard to get real narrative writing, getting the tone, the choice of words. I get that. So the weird thing is, and not just me, I've seen other people saying this, when we first saw this blog, we were really upset about what a bad state he's in, or was in. He said he got really recharged by this trip for a month to Europe. Actually, it was kind of encouraging that we thought you weren't writing at all. And he just, I only got a few pages done of Winds and of Blood and Blood and Fire. And we thought it was worse than that, and we're happy you're now and again doing so. I'm hoping he's feeling better, but I don't know, that some of us felt oddly encouraged by this, that it's not as bad as we thought. He is banging his way through on this. And check out the link to the long-form interview text transcript he gave at Worldcon to winteriscoming.net, where, there's a point where he goes, I am determined to finish the Winds of Winter. But it's not like he hit, another big writer's block. It's he said, why didn't I get work done the first half of this year? A very close friend died, it really rattled me, and then I was fighting with the studio over TV show stuff a lot, and it ate up a lot of my time. That's a pretty good excuse, as opposed to I just wasn't feeling it. I'm feeling pretty good about... I feel like he's full of piss and vinegar, whereas before he was just filled with vinegar, as Grandpa Simpson would say. That the fact that he's out there blogging about the TV show again and standing up for himself, and I hope they reconcile that. I don't want them to fight. I feel like he's got his mojo back. He's got his energy back, in a way. But if nothing else, I'm happy that he's getting some good notes done for Blood and Fire.